So thinking of opening up a trucking company in Canada or the US? Well, you've come to the right channel. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about 3 most important things that you need to know before opening up that trucking company. All right, guys, so who am I and what in the world do I know about trucking? So I've been in the industry since 2005 and I've watched this fleet grow and I've been a part of their growth from the time it had 10 trucks to the time it has right now currently over 100 power units. I've been a dispatcher, I've been in safety and compliance, I've been in recruiting, and now I'm VP of operations here at ET Transport. If this is the first time you're stumbling upon this channel is all about trucking. So there's educational videos, how to be profitable. This channel was created more for creating awareness and educating drivers to become more profitable, more successful, and to unite actual North American truck drivers. I think our industry has been scattered, and I think the voice of a truck driver has been long gone, and I really want to reunite that, and I really want to reignite that, where drivers do feel empowered and united in some form of way. So make sure you're a subscriber to this channel and make sure that you ring that bell notification so next time we take out a video, you'll get notified. As you know, recently we have opened up a terminal in Atlanta, Georgia, and I've had to do everything from scratch, from opening up the terminal, hiring the terminal manager, signing our lease, and I've created a series, a 7-part series on how I opened up a trucking company in Atlanta, Georgia. There's a couple of things that I don't talk about in that series, and that's why I'm going to be talking about in this video. The 3 things that you need to do before starting that trucking company. These are must things that you need to do, and I can't stress enough that you will be successful if you do these 3 things. So let's talk about the research phase. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I remember before we even started ET Transport, I used to calculate and crunch numbers all the time. And I used to put Excel sheets together and I used to go through the expenses, and it doesn't matter how many expenses I had, I would throw on even more expenses out there because I really wanted to see a worst case scenario, and I never took best case scenario. I always wanted to see the worst case scenario. Now, the research is also done on the kind of loads that you're going to do, what kind of loads you're going to do. Are you going to haul vans, reefers, flatbeds? What kind of work? How much do you need in order to be profitable? What kind of truck are you going to be driving, and what's the rate per mile that you have to have before you become profitable? So there's a great link over here. I mean, this is what I use to monitor and track the market every single month, and it actually gives me week by week statistics. Now, if I go into this link, and I'll link it down below, but here's what I see: national spot rates. I mean, a lot of us work on load boards, and this is the worst case scenario, is these load boards. The best case scenario is you getting work off of your shippers and receivers. So when I look at these load boards and I see the national average for vans, reefers, and flatbeds, I see that the vans currently right now are running at about $2.05 in the month of May. The average rate per mile. The flatbeds are running at $2.65 per mile, and the reefers are running at $2.45 per mile. So what I do is I go on Excel, and I'll share the Excel sheet with you, and I'll tell you really what I'm doing. I don't want to over exaggerate. I actually like to underestimate. And what I underestimate over here is if the national average is 2.06 per mile, just like this link shows me, then I kind of work my way into it, where worst case scenario is I'm getting $1.85 per mile based on my Excel sheet, and then I do a best case scenario at 2.25. So let's say I was going to open up a trucking company and run dry vans. I kind of want to put my gross earnings on the top side. Now, my gross earnings is I usually do it based on 11,000 miles per month. I am running only solo drivers here at ET Transport. We do have a few teams, but my calculations are only going for solo drivers. And if you have a team, that's great, you'll get paid extra. But our calculations, or my calculations that I do, I usually go under single drivers. Now, what I take here is the gross earnings based on $1.85, based on 2.05, and based on 2.25. And I kind of go through my expenses every single month. I know that the driver's cost is going to be at least 65 cents per mile, so I kind of plug him in on all 3 scenarios. And then I do the fuel, and I do 2 variations of fuel: best case scenario and worst case scenario. So if my fuel is worst case scenario, it should be 7.5 gallons per mile. Best case scenario is 8.5. Now, also the link that I'm going to share with you also gives me the national average across the US. So we're going to plug in these rates, also driving at 7.5 miles per gallon and 8.5 miles per gallon. Here are the numbers across the board. Now, tolls and bridges are kind of estimated approximately about $400. I could be off by a little bit, or I could be overestimating or underestimating depending on which lanes I run. I mean, if I'm doing the East Coast, it's probably underestimating, but if I'm doing the Midwest region and the Southeast, I'm probably overestimating. Now, the driver that I hire is going to need the benefits, out-of-state medical insurance, and the registration for the truck, which is the plates, is going to cost me $166 per month. So total deductions, I have about $13,000 in all three scenarios. And then I also have my insurance. So everybody's insurance is going to be different. I mean, if you're getting into the industry, you're probably looking at about $2,300 to $2,500 per month. Plus there's a lot of other expenses that you should be adding to this Excel sheet. Now, in my worst case scenario over here, I get, $7,800 would be my net take home minus the insurance. There's a lot more expenses here that need to go on. And then in my 2.05 scenario, which is my national average scenario, I would get to take home about $10,000 minus insurance and other expenses that I haven't thought of. And then in my third best case scenario, that is if the market starts going in the right direction, I should be able to get about $2.25 per mile, making about $12,000 a month off that truck. So this is what I'm talking about, the research phase. You got to start doing the research phase, and you need to be pointed in the right direction for that research phase. Now, hopefully this link is going to help you before you start doing any more calculations. Now, also there's a huge market for reefers and there's a huge market for flatbeds. So I've also done one scenario for reefers and one scenario for flatbeds. Now, the national average for reefers is $2.45, and that's exactly what I took in my calculation. So $2.45. Again, I do 11,000 miles across the board on every single scenario. My driver's pay is actually 70 cents per mile if I was to run reefers, and then flatbeds, it would be 75 cents per mile. So the driver pay in scenario number one is $7,700. Fuel, again, I'm only going to take 7.5 because when you're running reefers, it's usually heavier loads. You're going to be running at 7.5 miles per gallon. Some of my reefers do get to 8.5 miles per gallon, but I like to overestimate and underestimate that the numbers would look worse than they would actually be. Tolls and bridges would be the same. All other expenses would be the same. The insurance should be the same, leaving you with more money at the end of the month if you were to do reefers. And then in the last case scenario, my flatbeds, I know I need to pay my driver a little bit more. It would be 75 cents per mile for anybody to commit to doing flatbeds. Driver's pay is over here. The fuel, again, it would be 7.5 miles per gallon. You won't get 8.5 miles per gallon running in the flatbeds. And then the fuel price that I took was basically based on today's national average. And then you have your accident insurance, registration, and all the other fees. Again, there's still insurance here, your actual truck insurance, and there's a few more fees, for example, that are not on this Excel sheet. But this is the importance of the research phase and having multiple scenarios of it. And part two is really having a plan on how you plan on doing this. So when we opened up our terminal in Atlanta, Georgia, I knew that we're going to recruit right away 5 drivers, and after 5 drivers, within the next 2 months or 3 months, we're going to be recruiting an additional 5. Whether they're company drivers, owner operators, or lease operators, we have yet to determine, but we have had a plan that we put in place, an actual written plan that I've put in place on where I see this terminal after 1 year, and you should be doing the exact same with your truck and with your trucking company. Number 3, so I remember starting this out, I had a mentor, okay? I had a mentor. We're coming into this industry. I was in my early 20s, and I had back then, he was in his early 50s, and my mentor that kind of taught me the ropes and scenarios of what happens when you get into trouble, what happens when somebody doesn't pay their invoice, and basically any question that I had along the way, I would call this mentor, or every time something happened where I needed advice, he always guided me in the right direction. So a lot of comments out there on, do I consult? So guys, over the last probably 6 months or a year, I'm getting a lot of comments on consulting. I've actually had a bunch of people reaching out to me, small fleet owners, on whether or not I consult. I do consult. I really wish that a lot of the companies that they reach out to me, I wish they had reached out to me before opening up their trucking company, just because I see so many errors that happen, and usually the core of someone's trucking company is wrong, and it's very hard to come in there and change or give recommendations when the core is wrong. What do I mean by the core is wrong? Their lease agreements, their finance agreements, the way they hire their drivers, that's an easy fix. The employees in their office is very, very hard to change a mentality inside an office once things are going in the wrong direction. But again, huge numbers. So insurance policies, I mean, I've seen in horrible insurance policies where people committed to $3,000, $4,000 a truck. I've seen horrible lease agreements where drivers are getting ripped off with 32, 35% financing rates. And I don't care what that insurance broker or what that finance broker or the insurance broker or the finance broker is telling you. I mean, at the end of the day, they get a commission off of their deal. So the higher the deal is, obviously the more commission they make. So for example, that insurance broker that you have, I mean, he makes a lot more money when you pay a much higher policy versus when you pay a much lower policy. And the exact same thing happens, you know, with the finance broker that's financing your truck, or that's finding you that lender to finance your truck. They all get paid a commission, and the higher interest rates you get, the more commission goes in their pockets. So don't get fooled by these guys. I don't care who they are. I've created a calculator for you guys. So in this calculator over here, you can put a loan amount. All you gotta do is press the calculate button over here, and it'll give you your monthly payments. So you can play around with this calculator as much as you want, so you can see what's your budget and for how long you're going to be financing the truck. So this form over here, also, if you do fill it out, will go out to multiple lenders that can quote you on your truck financing needs. So I play around with this a lot in order to get monthly payments, or calculator, in order to understand what the interest rate is and what my monthly payment is going to be like. So yes, I can mentor, yes, I can consult, but I really hope that if you reach out to me, that you'd be reaching out to me at the beginning. But obviously, you know, if you need my help, no problem, you're more than welcome to email me, sponsorship@ettransport.ca. So 3 things, takeaways from this video. Number 1, when opening up your trucking company, number 1, make sure you watch my series on how to open up a trucking company, because I've documented every step on my journey when I opened up the trucking company in Atlanta, Georgia. But the research phase and the planning stage is very, very important. Make sure you have multiple scenarios on best case scenario, worst case scenario. Get yourself a written plan on that you're going to be following step by step, and have yourself a mentor or somebody that's going to coach you on how to do things properly, or somebody that you can call in case you need some advice on things that you are not aware of, or new scenarios that you will be put into that you kind of want to get out in the most cost-effective way of getting out of that jam. So hopefully you learned something from this video. So guys, if you have any questions on how to open up a trucking company, or things that you should do before opening up your trucking company, you can email me directly or leave a comment down below. I usually read all my comments and respond to them, but you can email me directly at sponsorship@ettransport.ca. And if you have a series of questions, I might just do a video on it, because I've done that in the past. So I'm Ronen, Ronen, and I'll catch you in my next video.